this round table with the presentation of Jayantha Kumar Sarma, Director of Bhupen Hazarika School of Mass Communication, Krishna, Kanta, Khandika State Open University of Gauhati, who delivers us a lecture on politics and economics of media in Northeast India. Please, Professor, your floor.
This is afternoon in Gauhati, in Assam. So yes. It's a good afternoon to you all, Professor Stoliarev, Madam Indira. I'm actually honored for this opportunity. I have been a media person for almost 30 years now. Academics is relatively new for me. I have joined in academics only last year, but you can consider me to be a basically field man. I started my career as a journalist. Then I become a public relation man in a government organization, the railways. And after 20 years in the railways, I left that organization to join academics. And here I am in KK Khandika State Open University. So I am more of a field worker. So whatever I'm going to actually share here today will not be very purely academic, but it is what I am going to share is highly influenced by my experience as a media person, as a public relation man, as a man who stayed in this region for last 55 years. I was born and brought up here. So the topic that I have chosen is the politics and economics of Northeast, but this is an audacity on my part to try to speak on politics and economics in 20 minutes, because the subject actually demands a book. It should be, there should be a book written on this. But I'll try to deal with it in 20 minutes. But before diving into this topic directly, let me raise two flags. I want to raise two flags here. One is this term Northeast is actually a misnomer, because Northeast originally consisted of 7 states. Then another state was included into it, and now it consists of 8 states. And all these 8 states are vastly different in terms of language, in terms of culture, in terms of geography, in terms of internal politics, in terms of aspirations. So it is not very, I don't actually subscribe to this idea of clubbing together 8 states of this region, eastern region of India, into one unique identity and then trying to understand it. I believe that if you need to understand Northeast, it has to be studied separately. All these 8 states should be studied separately because of their uniqueness. That is the first flag. The second flag is that the idea of this roundtable that has been circulated, it says that one of the assumptions in that the idea paper is that Northeast is economically lagging behind because this region had got the fruits of economic development later on. It did not get enough opportunity. And that's why this region of the country is lagging behind. And these lags led to different kind of ethnic strife, different type of separatist politics, and which was reflected in the last 50 years in the media in this region. But I will try to draw your attention to the fact that railway came to India in 19th century. Railways came to Assam in 1881. So this region got railways within 30 years of railway reaching India. Then you talk about steamer navigation, water navigation. This area got water navigation even before the western part of this country. You talk about roads. This area got roads, metal roads, in 19th century itself. Then if you talk about industry, oil, coal, and tea, these are the three biggest industries set up in Assam by 1890. So by the end of this 19th century, Assam has got everything, all kind of economic development and the fruits of industrialization by the end of 19th century. So after 19th century, another 40 years, 47 years, it took us to get independence from the colonial ruler. And then another 70 years, and now here we are. But the economic non-development of this region, that happened in the last 100 years. Because 1900, this area was economically prosperous. This area supplied almost 80% of the tea that is produced by India. This region supplied almost 50% of the oil, and this region supplied almost 20% of the coal that is totally produced by India at that time. So something happened in the last 100 years that this region started to lag behind than the other region in terms of economic development. So we need to actually, I'm flagging this because this is one area which needs attention from the academia, that why, despite having almost everything by the end of 19th century, in last 100 years, what happened in this region? That region is today supposed to be ranked at 70 among the states of the country. We have 34 states, and out of that, the rank of this region, Assam, is at 17. Other northeastern regions, they are very poor. If you talk about Human Development Index, their performance is very bad. If you talk about health, sanitation, education, nutrition, their positions are very bad in comparison to the states of India. So this is the second flag. Now, having said that, I would like to approach the topic that I am trying to discuss today in two parts. The first, I will try to talk about the media economics, and then I will try to share my ideas about how economics, this post-liberalization scenario, and the scenario that we are facing throughout the world, the aggression of the capital, finance capital, and then this crony capital. In this scenario, economics plays a major role in political decision making. So first, I'm trying to think about loudly. I'm thinking loudly about how economics of media, how the media economics dictates politics, and how politics, on the other hand, is dependent on this economics. That is the first part of my deliberation. And then I will try to address how the politics of northeastern region for the last 70 years after independence, how it is reflected in the media of this region. So media, as I understand, is actually what you make of it. It is a powerful tool. It has huge potential. But what media, the role media will be playing, the position of media in the society, and what we get out of it, that depends on how it is used. So because of this huge potential of this tool, if you look at the history of media throughout the world, you will see that it is always an endeavor of the people in power whoever has the power, they always try to control the media, because they understand that potential of this tool is so huge that if they do not control it, it may go out of their hand, and this may actually act as a threat to the existence of the power. So throughout the history of humankind, throughout the history of media, whoever has been in power, they try to control media and use it for their benefit. And there are two distinct ways of controlling the media. One is you control the ownership of the media. You have the ownership in your hand, then the media is in your control. And the other one is having a state control. Communist countries, they believe in state control of media, and thereby they are actually dictating the road that media will be taking. In our country, we are having more of a private ownership, and this ownership acts in terms of political thinker Noam Chomsky. This acts as a filter which actually decides what the people will consume, what people will read, what people will see. So ownership acts as a very potent controlling tool for the media. Now, let me discuss about the state of media in this region during the last 2-3 decades. See, 1991 was a very turning point, a big turning point for the entire country, India, because that is the year we embarked on the path of liberalization. The next turning point for media in India came in 2008. The proliferation of internet, the proliferation of digital media. If you look at the business model of media in India, you will see that the revenue of all these news media or any other kind of media comes from two distinct sources. One is what we call subscriber revenue. That means whoever buys the media, they pay a certain amount of money. That comes as a revenue to the media industry. The other revenue that comes from advertisement. If you look at the share of advertisement revenue and subscription revenue, you will see that 80% or in and around 80% of the revenue that comes for the media through advertisement. And subscription revenue constitutes only around 20% of the revenue that the media houses get. The production of media is costly, and subscription revenue is not enough to cover the entire cost, let alone talk about making profit. So the main profit in this business that comes from the advertisement revenue. So all the medias, they are always indirectly being controlled by the advertisers. You cannot see something which will not pass through the filter. Again, I'm borrowing the term of Noam Chomsky, that it will come through the filter of advertisers. The advertisers will dictate what the media will let you see. So print media in this region, they were flourishing from 1991 because we got new technologies. Otherwise, before liberalization, these technologies were not available. You had to import them. Cost was prohibitive. But the moment we opened up offset presses, computer-aided printing technologies, these technologies came to this region, northeastern region. India got the first offset printing press in 1986. And northeastern region, they got the first offset printing press in 1991. So there is a lag of around 6 years before rest of the India, they got offset presses, and this region got offset presses. And then what happened? We started printing more print media. I'm talking about print media for the time being. We started printing newspapers, more newspapers. The readership started increasing. And at the same time, the literacy rate that increased in this region because of the government efforts. And there was a boom, a newspaper boom in this area till 2000. 2010, by 8, we got internet here. By 10, the newspaper circulation started to decline because people got mobile internet, people got internet in their desktop, and with the help of internet, news become free. You don't have to pay anything. you get free news. So the subscription revenue of print media, it started declining. And as a result, all these newspapers that were prevalent in this region, you will be surprised to know that Gauhati, this Assam, has a population of around 3 crore, and the newspaper that comes out, daily newspaper that comes out in the state of Assam is around 40. There are 40 daily newspapers in 4 different languages coming out of this region with a population of 3 crore, and the total readership of these newspapers is around 47% of the population. So it's a robust kind of a media scenario here, but the industry is struggling because the subscription revenue is very less. One newspaper sells for around 9 rupees. The cost of production is around 24 rupees. So 9 rupees and 24 rupees, that means there is a shortfall of around 17 rupees. That 17 rupees has to be made good with advertisements. And there is no advertisement apart from government advertisement. So in a way, government has been controlling all the print media in this region for a long time, because government is the single largest provider of advertisement to newspapers, and survival of these newspapers depends on government advertisement. But when internet came, all newspapers, they started shifting towards digitization. They started having their online edition. Online edition has a different issue, different problem here. Newspaper produce digital content, but that content is delivered by 2 big technological giants. One is Google, the other one is Meta-owned Facebook. These are the 2 big technological giants who control 80% of the news content that is delivered to the people. So digital space also, there is a lack of adequate revenue for the media here. As a result, they are always dependent on advertisement revenue. So if a media is not independent, if it is not self-reliant, if the business model is not self-sustaining, if the business model dictates that they will always have to depend for advertisement, and the bulk of that advertisement comes from the government, naturally, the media will have a kind of state control over it. The government is, in a way, indirectly, through the route of advertisement, they are controlling the media here in this region for a long time. Now, coming to the other state of the northeastern region. There are 7 other states. One of them is Tripura. Tripura has a very robust media industry. There are around 14 daily newspapers coming out of that state. Manipur do not have much of newspaper circulation, because distribution of that newspaper is a big problem in Manipur and Nagaland and Mizoram because of the terrain. These are all hilly states. So you print it in one place, it becomes a big problem to distribute throughout the entire state. So there is a very low circulation in print media in these states. Meghalaya, Nagaland, Mizoram, and Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, they don't have much of newspaper circulations. Assam has the largest circulation. Sikkim, again, do not have much of newspaper circulation. Coming back to radio and television, I'll clubbing them together into as electronic media. Electronic media is one particular media where you do not have a subscription revenue. You only have advertisement revenue. You do not get money from the consumer. You get money from the advertiser. So the industry there is wholly dependent on advertising. And if you look at the number of radio stations and television stations in this region, Assam has the largest number of television channels, private television channels. Rest of this, Assam also has the largest number of FM stations, followed by Arunachal Pradesh. But interestingly, all these radio FM stations are run by All India Radio. All India Radio is supposed to be run by an autonomous institution called Prasar Bharati. But Prasar Bharati, being financed by the government, Again, All India Radio is dependent on government. So they cannot speak against what the government wants. They are under the state control. Electronic media is the business model of electronic media. Television is actually very flawed model. The gestation period is very high. You start a business, television channel business, it takes around 7 years to get a return on your investment. So there are very few people with that kind of deep pockets who can sustain it on their own for 7 years and then get a return on their investment. So naturally from day one, they start looking for advertisement revenue. And where this advertisement revenue will come from? The advertisement revenue comes from government, because commercial advertisement in this region are very less. There are not much of commercial advertisement revenue in this region. So all the news channels, they depend on the government for their survival. So you get the state control over electronic media. You got the state control over print media. Coming back to the social media scenario, government doesn't have much of a state control so far, because they do not, this digital media, their model is such that delivery of the content is done by these big tech companies. Internet service providers, they provide the medium, and the content is generated by the existing newspaper houses or other media houses or television channels or radio channels. They generate the content. That content is delivered by ISPs, internet service providers, and the technological platform news aggregators. All the revenue that is generated in digital platform are taken away by either the internet service provider or the big technological companies who aggregate the news and show it in your screen. Since they dominate this market, they have a monopoly over it, the revenue is also dominated by them. They get the maximum number of revenue. Government of India so far has laws and rules that can control the internet service provider. They can stop internet service in certain areas, but the rules and regulations and laws that are in place till now, they are not adequate to stop the monopoly of Google and Meta. Therefore, the digital platform, digital media in this region, in last 10 years, they have failed to develop much. Of course, COVID-19 has given a kind of boost to it. COVID-19 acted in a kind of catalyst for development of digital media, but that did not increase the revenue of this digital platform. The digital media flourished. There was a big boom in the digital media market, but the revenue they generated, 80% of that revenue went to Google and Meta. Only 20% of the revenue remained with the actual producers who produces news, who produces content for this digital platform. So that is another issue which has been flagged. So there is an association called Digital News Producers Association in India, who has approached the Competition Council of India against the monopolistic and monopoly practices of Google and Meta. They have lost complaints, and in the last week of October, this CCI had fined Google of 1,900 crore rupees for practicing this monopolistic business model. But there is no law to stop Google entering into a private contract with a media producer. And if they stipulate in that private contract that whatever revenue will be generated, 80% of that revenue will go to Google, and both the parties sign that contract, government hardly can do anything. So digital media is one area which has not been absolutely under control of the state. But apart from that, rest is always under the control of the state in this region. So having said that, this is the basic model, this is economics of media in this region. Now coming back to the politics, as I am talking about the control, politics starts from there. Who controls the media? That is the biggest question here. In the last 30 years, from 1990 till 2010, the main player in the field who controls the content of the media or the character of media, who controls what the media will tell the people, what will be the role of media in the society, there are only two different kinds of players. One is the state, and by default, the political party who have the state power. So far it had been Congress, now it is BJP. So these political parties, they, using the power of the state, they control the media, and so they set the narratives. The other party who sets the narratives, where the people who were struggling for existence, struggling for their rights, struggling for their own ethnic identity, their own separate state, like United Liberation Front of Assam. There was a time in 1990s and till around 1995, 2000, that United Liberation Front of Assam, they dictated what the newspaper will write about them, because they had the power of the gun, they had the power of terror with them to control the media. Similarly, the media in Manipur was controlled by the insurgent groups in Manipur. Mizoram, same story. Garo Hills in Meghalaya, same story, except Arunachal Pradesh and Tripura. All other states had these two players controlling the media in this region. So whatever the politics that media played in this region were actually dictated by either the political parties who have the state power under their control, or these insurgent groups who were actually had the power of terror with them to actually threaten these media owners, because as I said, all media in this region are privately owned. So the media owner, they decides what will be the content in the media, and that content in indirectly, that content is decided by either state or these insurgent groups. That was the broad scenario of media in this region for almost 20 years of the last century, last 20 years, last 2 decades. But 2000, this new century, it saw certain kind of changes. The state players, they managed these insurgent groups, giving a limited kind of autonomy. There are different autonomous councils. So people who were struggling for a separate state, a separate political power setup, they were given limited political power, limited economic authority, and insurgency. Gradually, the fighting for a separate land, fighting for identity, it started diminishing. And last 10 years, it has been completely wiped out. United Liberation Front of Assam, they have major portion of their cadres have come overground. Manipur, they have come overground. They are trying to negotiate with the government. Nagaland, as you all know, that there is a peace talk going on. Tripura, the insurgents, they had been wiped out. They had joined mainstream government. They had joined hand with BJP to gain power, political power in the state. Meghalaya, whatever small groups were fighting against the government, they were already subsidized. They were subdued. There is no insurgency in there. Arunachal Pradesh did not have insurgency as such. Sikkim, the political power is with the rebels now. So there is no insurgency there. So last 10 years has shown that the control of media, as I said, it has been controlled by two groups. The second group has been wiped out of the scene. So there is only one player here who is controlling media in this region, that is the state power. And who is this state power? The political party who is actually running the government. They dominate media and they set the agenda for the media, and they decide what the media will be speaking, what the media will be telling people, and what the consumer of the media will be consuming in way of media content. That is the broad scenario of media in this region. But I think it is very difficult to do justice on the topic in such a short period of time. It needs much more in-depth analysis of media in these 8 states. You have to individually study the media and their characteristics in these states to arrive at a academically acceptable conclusion. But what I said can be probably ignite some of the minds, so who will be taking up research work in this area. And with these words, I would like to conclude. Thank you again, Professor Stoliarov and Madam Indira and all the participants. I will be, am I allowed to take questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Students, any questions? Can you ask something? Do you want? I have a question. We know that the next general elections will be in 1924. How do you think? I know what you will say about the prospects, but I want to ask, what is your, in your opinion, the way to change the situation?
Right now, the way to change situation is by changing people's mind. You need to make people aware of what is wrong, why it is wrong, and how it has gone wrong. And the only tool so far, I mean, 5 years ago, the only tool we had was the existing traditional media. The new tool now we have is the digital platform and the new media called social media. This is the area where you can actually reach people. But again, as I said, this digital media is also controlled by the business interest. They have to survive, they have to get revenue, and the revenue comes from advertisements. So indirectly, they are again censored in a way. So they will not be probably independent enough to let people know what is wrong or what needs to be corrected. Only hope that I can see is there is a new breed of independent media that is coming up, news portals, digital news portals, who are changing their business model. Their business model is solely based on subscription revenue. It's a pay to read, pay to see kind of a thing. You pay for it and you get the news, and they don't depend on advertisement. They are not bothered about advertisement revenue. They will get the revenue from the consumers, and consumers will be deciding whether they will be reading it, whether consuming it, this digital content or not. These independent kind of news business models, they probably will be able to play the role, that role we generally assign to media. We say that media should be a pluralistic, a liberal kind of a platform where the minorities, the have-nots, they also have their voices heard. They have a platform to say their words, their opinion. That can only be done with the help of this independent media, whose business model is based on subscription revenue, not advertisement revenue. That's what I see as the future.
And how you appreciate the potential of this independent media?
Right now, it is at a very nascent stage. They are not being able to do much, but people are appreciating it. They got a lot of subscriptions. they got a lot of readers, they got a lot of consumers. But state has come down heavily on them. Political parties, they have come heavily down on these independent media outlets because they have rightfully identified these independent media houses as the only threat to their existence. So I don't know. I mean, you cannot predict, I mean, how the things will turn out to be. But we always hope that good sense will prevail, and people in a capitalist economy, people become aware of their rights as consumers. So they will be paying for a good product. So if these news portals or news houses or media houses provide good content, the content is good, they will be paying it, they will be buying it. People has become that content conscious now. So maybe, I'm again saying maybe, there has not been much study on that. Nobody has done much of a research in that area. So this is basically a hope. I am saying that maybe this independent media will survive all kind of suppression, all kind of repression, and will flourish because by the quality of their content.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Very interesting and
Very
valuable.
yes.
I hope you write down about it, this your topic, and publish. And we are ready to publish it also, this short essay. And as you said before, this is the topic for the whole book.